Yep. And so the you just take a look, right? From a search engine's point of view, how do they figure this out? Throbber, the FB login, heart, Spinners light, FB login. Here you go. This is a well populated alt tag, although they're duplicates. No, there's other numbers on them. DWF skirt 123. That's actually okay.
Okay, they have the same alt text though, because they're the same image from different. So it's like, let's say I have a skirt and I want a front and a side shot or something. They're different angles, so they're different photos, but they're of the same skirt. So they have the same alt text, but they have different. The images themselves are different.
Right. Okay, so they're different images. They're named differently, but they have the same alt text. So probably the takeaway here is to use unique alt text if you can. I know that might be tough.
Yeah, that one might be tough.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't? Does it dilute it or just take the first one?
I mean, just as a general best practice,
okay,
you don't want to be doing duplicate anything.
Okay.
Right. So it might be a good one to fix. And so do you do any linking from your items to your other items?
No, actually, yeah. So down here we have other items from this uploader.
Oh, okay.
The style's a bit broken there, but it doesn't matter. So like each of those is a picture of the item, and it will link to the page of that item, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit earlier about how image links probably are not as good as text links from a search engine, but I think from a user, it definitely is better, right? Because they can see what it looks like. So I think that one's unlikely to go away, and if it's not as optimal, I think that's just the way it has to be.
That's life, yeah. And again, it's great to know all the SEO best practices, but at the end of the day, you don't want those to supersede what's best for the user. So keep it in mind, but do what's best for the user, right? So you don't need to worry about that much.
Is there any way you can improve it a little bit by having like alt text on those images and stuff? Does that help? Okay.
Yep, I would include alt text on those images, try and be descriptive as possible. Again, changing the URLs to a more friendly name would be better, but doesn't look like you can. Doesn't sound like you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk to the designers and see, but like you imagine just sort of like a row of their titles there, it just wouldn't look the same, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's take a look at your keyword research. Talk to us more about. I've never heard of Threadflip. How would I be convinced into signing up, checking out the site without being told by a friend? How would I find it? What type of things would I type in? What would I search for?
So it's a bit difficult, I guess, because we've been primarily thinking about we would want to get people through friends. But I guess if you weren't going through a friend, probably one of the things that would make you either want to go the most would be if you saw something there that you wanted to buy. So I guess items that you might want. We have a lot of vintage items because that's just what people upload. So if you're really into vintage stuff, that would probably be like a good thing. Also, if you wanted like used or discounted, possibly designer things, we have a bunch of that too. So I guess all the social stuff is really hard to describe. Like,
for sure,
I can't really imagine that you would really be like Googling, I really want to follow my friends' wardrobes, for example. Like that's not. If you're getting into it for the social stuff, you would get into it through Facebook or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Yep. So that probably means outside of individual item names, which is a more you have to sort of algorithmically do that, right? We wouldn't go and search for each individual item, but it sounds to me like vintage clothes, used designer clothes, and what was the other key phrase there?
Or basically cheaper designer stuff, discounted. Yeah.
Okay. Pre-loved?
Oh yeah. That's a phrase that we like. Yeah.
Vintage clothes, pre-loved clothes, used clothes, discount, designer clothes, vintage designer clothes.
And I guess also shoes and bags and things like that as well. Not just
Designer
clothes.
clothes, right, okay.
So
Vintage shoes, vintage bags, vintage shoes, bag, clothes.
accessories, I guess. I don't know if that's too vague, but yeah.
Are we using like second-hand?
Secondhand. Yeah, I mean, yeah, secondhand would be fine. It's maybe not exactly what we'd use as our marketing. You know, pre-loved sounds better than secondhand, but if people were searching it, we would want that, right?
Cool. So let's just take a look. Discount designer clothes. Vintage designer clothes is pretty low, but vintage shoes? Vintages shoes. I spelled that wrong. Vintage bags. Vintage accessories. Discount shoes. So that is a probably way too broad and a way different category than what we're going for. Discount shoes,
Right.
22,000. That's probably too much.
So if there are too many, that's almost bad.
Yeah, and we usually, once we start to narrow it down, I like to go and do a search for the phrase and check it out and check how competitive it really is. But in general, when it's that massive, you got to think discount shoes. Is this my customer? What's this person looking for? Probably not.
Like they're probably not thinking lightly used high heels. They're probably thinking like bulk children's shoes.
They're thinking a new pair of Reeboks for cheap.
Right.
Right. So, not our market.